Hi everyone, this is Ernie and I'm gonna be going over uh, my project 3, the 9 square grid. So starting off with the render floor plan, these are the elements that I decided to include in my model. The first one in the bottom left corner is the program of ascending and descending. So this was achieved by adding some steps. Next to it, I added the program of diffusion, and the way I did it is by um, having this corridor that goes from a wide opening to a small opening, and it gives people going through it the experience that they're going through a diffuser. After that, I had the program of path. So this is just a circular path that takes you to the next room. The next room is one of my favorite ones. This is olfactory sensation. So when I read this as part of the programs on Canvas, I was very curious to find out how this could be achieved in an architectural way. After doing some research, I saw this idea where you could have planters with plants that have different odors and gave off different smells. So I did these hanging planters. They're hanging from the ceiling, and as people kind of go through this room, they can get that olfactory sensation of the scents and the smells that are given off by these plants. Next to it, we have pattern. So I have these very simple rectangular patterns, 3D rectangular patterns on the walls and on the ceiling. Next to it, we have heaviness. So heaviness is achieved by having these beam chair like structures, figures on the ceiling, the walls, and on the floor. And then we have enclosure. So enclosure um, is done by having this circular room with a bench that gives people that feeling of being in an enclosure. And then next to it, we have aperture and opening. So I have these rectangular openings on the walls, similar to the rectangular pattern. Uh, and then I also have an opening on the ceiling, on the roof. And in the middle, as a focal point, we have the courtyard. So this is another one of my favorite ones. This has 4 columns around it, plus a wall on one side, and the other 3 sides are open to the rooms around it. And then it has a water feature in the middle. So moving on to the render elevations. The first one, you can kind of see these uh, planters that I have in here. They're hanging from the ceiling, and they have this opening where people can kind of smell the plants as they're going through. You can also see columns of the courtyard in the middle, the water feature in the opening aperture of the room on the other end. Here you see the aperture of the room in the middle. You see this egg-like um, structure here in the corner that is for the enclosure. You see the steps, and you also see a little bit of the diffusing corridor that starts big and ends small. Here again, you see the steps and you see the egg-like enclosure space with a small bench for people to sit. And here in this elevation, you also see that shape again. For the render section, you can kind of get a feel of what the inside looks like. So again, you see these hanging planters. You can see the rectangular patterns on the walls at this corner. Then you see these beam chair-like figures on the middle. They're on floor, walls, and ceiling. Next to it, you have the enclosure space with the small bench. And then you have the aperture room with openings on the walls and on the ceiling. And then in the middle, you have the courtyard. For these render detail sections, again, you have the rectangular patterns on the walls and ceilings. Here you have a better view of the beam chair structures that can also be used as sitting. They're on the walls and on the ceiling as well, and this gives that feeling of heaviness. And then right here you have the enclosure with the bench. Again, you have these hanging planters and the courtyard. And then this is just another view that I included of the enclosure space. The room with the aperture, and then the steps. So for these perspective sections, you have the enclosure here. This is one of my favorite rooms, and I can actually see myself sitting in here. And it just feels peaceful, quiet, and it feels like you are in an enclosed space. Here, you have all this aperture all around you. It's on the wall, it's on the ceiling, and I can really see how the sun would create all these really cool patterns as it moves through the building. And here you have the courtyard in the middle, one of my favorite rooms. I really like the Spanish tile, the water feature in the middle, and the columns. You can see that this has a wall on one side, and then the other three sides are open to the rooms next to it. So this is an isometric view. You can see the steps, the diffusing corridor, the path. You can see the courtyard in the middle, and some of the other views as well. It's another isometric view. This is my mood board. So these are some of the elements that I used throughout the project. So obviously the steps in the corner, this labyrinth represents the path program. Originally, I kind of wanted to go with something like this, but I felt like there was not enough room. So I went with something simpler. And there's a lot of rectangles all around it. The building is very squared as well. So that's why I included that. This is the Spanish style I was using, the courtyard, to be used as a focal point. So if you notice, it's the only room that has tile. And this was on purpose. Just really wanted it to be a focal point. I wanted everything else to be white with concrete flooring, because I feel like adding color to the buildings, to the rooms, would kind of take away from that experience. I really like how it looked white, so I went with it. I think it would have given the people in this building a different experience if I would have added color to the walls and added different finishes. Um, and then I have these Greek columns that were used as an inspiration for the courtyard. And then water, obviously, for the water feature, and a beanbag chair that kind of represents the heaviness in the heaviness Portland room. This is the sketch that I started out with. You see the courtyard in the middle. You see the opening. You see the steps. See diffusion. The path. This is kind of what I was going with at first, but like I said earlier, I didn't think we would have enough room, so I ended up going with a different type of path. Originally, this is what I had in mind for isolation. There was a room inside of the room with an opening, but I ended up scratching that one. And here, I had these planters kind of in a linear path. I ended up going with the hanging planters because I thought it would look better. And then here I was gonna go with softness and kind of include these soft, rounded shapes. After kind of playing with Rhino, I ended up going with the bean back chair figures, and I ended up changing this program to heaviness. And then here, this is what I had in mind for the enclosure. After playing with Rhino, I really like what I ended up with. It doesn't look like what I started, but this was the original inspiration. And that was kind of it for my project. Had a lot of fun doing this project. It was definitely challenging. I think one of the most challenging things was creating the render sections and learning how to use different features in Photoshop. But it ended up being a lot of fun once I kind of got the hang of it. I used the example that was provided on Canvas as an inspiration, but I did kind of try to go with a different style and I just kind of copy what they had. I like what I ended up with. I think I really surprised myself with these renders. I think they look really good, and I can't believe I actually created these. Overall, I think my project went well. I like all the different programs that I have in here. I decided to go with simple ideas rather than go with something very complex. And I decided to kind of focus on one program at a time. There are some rooms that kind of have more than one program. For example, the courtyard could also be reflection due to the pool in the middle. But I try to focus on just one program at a time. And I like overall how it looked. This was fun, and I hope you guys enjoy learning more about my project as much as I enjoyed creating it. Thank you.